Hi everyone, Christina here. Before we get into the video where I show you how I created this fun card using art impression stamps, I thought I would let you know that we have a brand new class over Online Card Classes. We just announced it, and I'm giving away 3 spots in today's video. Here's a little bit about the class, and I will have a link down below so you can sign up. Class starts 1 week from today. Okay, just click on the link down in the video description that says to enter my monthly giveaways, and I will pick 3 winners at the end of this week and send you guys emails and let you know that you can get into the class for free. So just make sure you submit that form by this Friday at the end of the day in order for your chance to win. So I'm going to be using this stamp set and die set. It's actually a project set from Art Impressions today. This is the Woodland Trees Cubby set, and this is a really cool project kit because it has dies that coordinate with the actual stamped images, but then the dies cut out all the little doors and windows in the treehouse so you can put all the little critters inside. So I'm stamping the images in some VersaFine Clear ink. This is the acorn color, and I'm going to be stamping it onto some hot press watercolor paper. This is watercolor paper from Fabriano, and I chose hot press because it's very smooth in comparison to cold press watercolor paper, and this is such an intricate image with all those little tiny details on the tree and also on the animals, and so I didn't want to lose any of that detail due to a rough texture or a rough surface of the watercolor paper. So I'm using the hot press watercolor paper because it is more smooth. So I stamped all of the images, and then I realized that I needed a bunch of leaves. So I just stamped so many leaves. In fact, I think I only needed about half of these in the end. But in the dies for the project kit, you actually get 4 leaf dies. So you can cut out 4 at a time. So the paints I'm using today are from Prang. This is a very inexpensive set. I think I got it for a couple dollars at my local grocery store. So I've used this watercolor set in the past, so you guys have seen it a little bit, but this is one of those ones that's actually really good, especially for the price. It's really compact. You can get a lot of different colors out of it, and the colors are really bright and vibrant. I really like that. You're not going to get like the really almost fluorescent cyan blue or the really bright magenta that you would with the Crayola set, but this one has some nice traditional primary colors, so I really like to use this set. In fact, I put together a little class for some neighborhood like daughters and moms. I think it was last summer, and I ended up buying a bunch of these watercolor sets, and that's what we used for the class. So I really recommend this one. You can get it online at a bunch of different places. I'll have it linked at Amazon down below. So I'm doing a lot of watercoloring today, but I wanted to let you guys know that I kept it as simple as possible. And the way I did that is I just used the packaging from the stamp set as a reference. You guys have heard me say this time and time again, that I appreciate that Art Impressions has examples of colored images on their packaging because they add the shadows in the areas where there should be shadows, and it just makes it really mindless almost to get all of the shading just right. You can just change the colors and make sure you add the shading where they have shading. And it's such a great way to have these intricate images because some of these, if you didn't know how to color them, could be a little bit daunting. So by having that example, it's actually really great. So I've sped up this painting process. I think it's 4 times as fast as normal. But I did want to talk you guys through it and maybe have a little chat. I haven't really chatted with you guys in a while beyond just telling you what's happening in the card when I'm making it. So I thought I would just say hello and just kind of talk a little bit about being artistic and being crafty and fill you guys in a little bit on what I've been thinking about recently. So I've been doing this for a long long time, over 10 years that I've been sharing these videos on YouTube. And I've been pretty artistic for most of my life, or all of my life that I can remember, which is, that's what led me to being a graphic design major in college. And then going more of an illustrative route with my profession, illustrating stamp sets and dies and things like that. And I've absolutely loved the whole process. I think there's a part of me that it wants to create something. It wants to, I want to make something with my hands. And I think a lot of us have that same drive. Whether we believe we have the talent or the ability for it or not, we still want to create things with our hands. And I think that's where crafting and stamping and card making comes into play, because it allows so many people to be artistic and creative. And it gives us everyone a really good jumping off point for how to do that. And it doesn't matter your ability, it doesn't matter your talent or your knowledge on the subject. You can really jump in feet first and really get going. So a lot of people, they really love the aspect of card making because you can give your projects away. And I love that aspect too. My friend Jennifer calls it sharing handmade kindness. I think that's brilliant. Such a great creative way of describing what we do. And I was thinking on that and I was like, well, is that my motivation for creating these cards? Is that why I do what I do? And I realized that that's part of it, but that's not the complete picture, at least not for me. I think more than the giving, it's the making. I love making things. I love creating something. And I'm sure the people I give my cards to, they appreciate it and they love it for what it is. But I think it's even more meaningful for me because it gives me a creative outlet. It gives me something to create with my hands. And there are so many of you that write to me, you write me messages or emails, and you say that crafting or even just watching crafting videos is very therapeutic. And I think that's completely true. And let me know in the comments if you find the same to be true, or if you don't, differing opinions is totally okay. But I think crafting can be a really good outlet. And I've received, like I mentioned, multiple emails from many of you, my viewers, saying that crafting videos or getting into crafting yourself has really given you an outlet and a way to de-stress and relax. And it's done a lot for your emotional and mental health, like even more than anything else that you might be doing in your life. And I think that's really telling for how transformative art in general can be, especially when it's crafting like this, where it's pretty low pressure. You're not having to create something that's going to be hanging in a museum. You're making something for a loved one or a friend or something like that. The crafting aspect of it, the making of things, is what is so meaningful. And I really loved that aspect of it. And it really helped me pinpoint why I do what I do and how, it seems like such a small thing to be creating these videos and putting them online and doing it for so many years. But at the same time, it's been a little bit of my own therapy, and for some of you, it sounds like it has been as well. And I think it's I think it's just really telling for how meaningful this can be, especially when you factor into the whole thing, the relationships that we gain with other crafters and other people that we meet through this hobby, or, in my case, in this profession. The people I've met through this industry is like, the list of people I met is amazing. They're such amazing, wonderful people. And I think a part of that is, when you're creating like this and you're making art like this and crafting and creating something with your hands, I think that it softens the edges of our personalities. I think it makes people more relatable to each other because we share that aspect that we all like to craft, we all like to make things, and it gives us something in common, I guess you could say, and it makes relating to others even easier. And I just think it's just a really fun and fascinating industry that I've found myself in, sort of by accident. I didn't set out to do this. It just sort of happened. And I couldn't be more grateful, because how many people can say they wake up every morning and they just get to do what they love? It's kind of brilliant. So I've moved on to die cutting. And let me tell you, this card, it took me a few hours to make this card, and half of that time was spent die cutting. And that's because I had to die cut all of those little itty bitty leaves over and over and over and over and over again, when really I could have just stopped halfway through the amount of leaves I painted, because I ended up not needing as many. You might want to take a picture or look at the picture of my finished card and kind of count how many leaves I used, because if you make this card, you will save yourself quite a bit of time if you only paint and die cut the amount of leaves you're going to be using. Just a heads up there. So I ran this through 5 billion times, die cutting every single one of those little itty bitty leaves, and then I created the background. So for the background, I'm using some clean water and just getting the entire surface of this hot press watercolor paper wet, using the same exact watercolor paper that I used for the tree. And then I'm just going to be using one color. I'm just using the blue from that watercolor set, and I'm going to drop the color in. This is going to create kind of a little bit of a cloudy sky, maybe a little more blue than cloudy. And I'm just letting this drop in here. Now, normally when I would drop color in onto a wet watercolor paper, the color really starts to wick away. But I think because I used hot press watercolor paper, there wasn't enough moisture to really get those colors moving. So even though I'm adding more and more water to the top of these colors, trying to get the colors to move, I eventually just grab my Distress sprayer, my spray bottle, and just spray a ton of water over the top of this entire background. And that really is going to soften all of those edges and really give lots of water, put a lot of water on the surface so those colors can really move around. So you can see how much that softened the sky there. Using my heat tool to speed up the drying process, and it's also blowing the water and kind of getting those puddles to move around a little bit. I did have to sop up quite a bit of water that was off to the side. I tilted that board up and it forced the water off to the side, so I just used a paper towel right along that edge to sop up some of that water. And then I went back with my heat tool and continued the drying process, just because I knew if I let it air dry that all of the water would collect in those, the areas where the paper started to warp. All the water would collect there, and then I might get some weird water spots, and I didn't want that. So I placed that tree house onto the background so I could see exactly where I wanted the ground to be placed. And then I just used some of that brown shade that I mixed up for the tree, and I brought that in to create the ground area. And I just painted that on, and that gives the illusion that that is where the horizon is. So I'm going to hit this with my heat tool once again, just to speed up the drying process. And then my background will be pretty much ready for assembly. So I put lots and lots of dimensional foam adhesive on the back of all these pieces that I'm going to be putting onto the card. And I knew I would be adding foam adhesive to very small, intricate areas. So I used this very thin foam tape from Darice. And I trimmed things down, and I took the backing release paper off so I could bend the foam and get into all those little nooks and crannies. So after I had all the foam on the back of the treehouse, I placed that onto the watercolor background. And then I'm going to start assembling the card. I'm going to start putting everything together. So all of those animals need little foam squares behind them, or in some cases I glued them directly onto the tree. But for the most part, I put foam behind each animal and then tucked them into the doors and the little cubbies. This one on the side, I used a little bit of Connect glue from Gina K Designs, and then I ended up having to cut the bottom of this little squirrel off so that I could stick him in that little doorway, or I guess it's a window or something. And he is sticking up, so I put a little bit of foam right behind him. So I moved on, and the next one I adhered was a little bird down at the very bottom. And I took the other squirrel, put him at the top, and I put a little bit of foam tape right where he goes, right outside that door, and then press down, and that holds him onto the tree. Put the little chipmunk inside this door here, and I put him on a foam square as well. And then this little bird up in the window, and another little chipmunk or squirrel or something right there too. I think that's a squirrel. So there were actually a couple other spots for more animals, and I didn't realize it. And I think if I was to do this again, I would stamp a couple more of the animals and paint them and die cut them out, but I didn't. So there's actually, there are a couple different spots that are there for animals that they're empty, but I didn't want to repaint things. And then I went on to adhering all of those little itty bitty leaves. I love that you can make the leaves, you can customize it, make the tree as big and bushy as you want, or keep it rather simple like I did. So I trimmed it down so that it was slightly smaller than a standard size card, and I just did that after everything was already adhered. And then I grabbed the stamp set and picked out a greeting. I thought this greeting here at the bottom that says, "A little birdie told me it's your birthday," it fit perfectly next to the tree but above the horizon line. And that just worked out really well. I think if I wouldn't have had a spot for it right there, I would have had to stamp that greeting on a separate piece of cardstock and then adhere it over top of the tree. For the card base, I scored that cardstock at 5.5 to create a top folding card, and I just used some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White for the card base. I put some foam tape on the back of that watercolor piece, or not some foam tape. It was a lot. Let's be real now. I did not shy away from putting the foam tape down there, and then I pressed that down onto the front of the card. You can see how fun that is with all those little doors. You can customize this if you wanted to fill it with other animals from different stamp sets, you could. Really love how this turned out. This is one of the Cubbies project kits from Art Impressions. They've got, I think, 4 or 5 different sets like this that are out right now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in another video very soon.